slightly tilted.
Yeah. They won't notice. They won't notice, except the fact that this is clearly the beginning of the video, so they're going to notice it.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Are you cold?
Well, I just got cold because I'm right under the fan, but I was noticing that a couple of years back, had a memory pop up on Facebook that said on this day it was snowing and then there was an earthquake. Snowing in April. That's weird.
Well, when I sat down, I was thinking, boy, it's hot in here. I wish I could turn that fan up. Hey guys, Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who Classic. Last time around, we finished up all of Season 17 with the end of Shada. What happened on that one?
You'll have to remind me.
Yes, so Skagra's plan was to merge all the minds in the universe into one. And in order to do that, he first had to find the old Time Lord criminal Salyaven, who turned out to be the Professor, and then a mind battle ensued, I think, because he had the other criminals in Shada, which was like the Time Lord's prison planet. So he had some of the other criminals who didn't really have any character and didn't really say anything, but that's all right. And he and the Doctor kind of had this mind battle controlling them, and then stuff blew up. There were K9 was fighting Bigfoot, and there were multiple balls around. So
I don't know as I'd have said that.
So yeah, and then at the end, the Doctor just left Salyaven at Cambridge, and he and Romana went on their way. So,
but there was that nice little bit at the end where the current Tom Baker said something about, I could be around for 100 years or so, and he looked up and it was actually the 20, whatever, 17 or 18, whenever they filmed that, and he had gray hair and he was very old, and that was kind of a fun little bit.
Yeah, so yeah, all around, it was a pretty good story, and people have started already to correct us that it was not a writer's strike, but as you said last episode, it was a technician strike. So I'm tempted because people have started saying that on our comments on the Horns of Nyman. So I'm tempted to go in and put in a pinned comment like, yes, we know it, just bear with us, just you don't have to correct us 1,000 times.
Yeah.
So that's just me. That's not even a complaint against comments or anything. That's just me being like, I'm trying to spare you guys from leaving the same comments for 3 weeks.
I finally figured out a while back that what happens is somebody will get on to post that and then realize that they haven't seen the 10 other people who've already made the same comment. So, yeah, it's not a problem.
Yeah, it's totally fine. And of course, it's always better for the algorithm that you leave a comment anyway. So it's fine. I'm just saying, I'm trying to spare you. Of course, by the time you're watching this video, you may have already left your 10 comments on the previous videos. So anyway, it's a bit of a moot point anyway. So yeah, we are starting out season 18 today.
The 7th and final season of Tom Baker.
Yes, we believe so at least. So I'm pretty sure this is it. And if that is the case, that means we have to run through a revolving door of companions for a little bit to get where we were with the 5th Doctor. So yeah, I have no idea when Romana is going to leave, but I'm just going to hope she didn't die or anything, because which is pretty rare for companions. We say that going into the 5th Doctor's era, but yeah, hopefully everything works out for Romana. Hopefully it's not just off screen like the last Romana anyway. So yeah, we're starting off with the Leisure Hive, which is an interesting name for a part. So
well, just the name again. I don't know anything about this, but in I know for Star Trek, for example, there was literally a pleasure planet called Risa or something like that. I know that was a Next Generation that may have carried over into the others. So that may be something, it's literally like the Delta Quadrants Disneyland or something like that, only for adults.
Yeah. So, yeah, Doctor Who at a theme park. That could be very, very interesting. So, and of course, it is the first episode of the season. So if you want to watch the full unedited reaction, you can head down in the description or into the pinned comment. There'll be a link there. It's season 18. You probably know how to do it by now, so I'm not going to go into explaining it because I think I spend way too long explaining how to do full length.
And now he's spending way too long explaining how much he explains.
Exactly. So instead, why don't we, unless you have anything else to say.
I got nothing.
Then why don't we go ahead and jump right into the Leisure Hive. Here we go.
There are people who pronounce it leisure.
Yeah. Honestly, it's probably just like how I feel, when I first wake up. It's like, is it a leisure day or is it a leisure day? I don't know. Alrighty, part 1. Whoop.
An entirely new opening.
Yep.
Yeah, the cosmic face.
Yeah, this is the... Ah, man, I have to change the thumbnail background. I knew we saw that they changed it for the 5th Doctor. I didn't know it started with the 4th. But then again, that also happened for the 3rd Doctor. Oh god, now I gotta use that font too? Great. I don't even know if I still have that font.
Brighton is a wonderful coastal... it's not really an amusement park, but it's a beach place, like Fort Walton Beach for us. There in southeastern England. And even in the summertime, it's only like 80 degrees. Or it was back then.
Good.
Yes, but you'd be surprised how cool 80 degrees feels when you're right next to the ocean. I'm assuming that's the English Channel, though. I wonder how they weighted down those chairs so that they're not blowing away.
Is this the whole episode, or are we gonna get anywhere else?
Now, the subtitle said snoring. I hear nothing other than the wind.
Now that you mention it... Ah, okay, here we go.
Well, go on then. You exercise. Fetch! Hey, no!
Jeez! Well, good job, Romana.
This is the 2nd time I've missed the opening of the Brighton Pavilion.
Oh, it is Brighton. Cool.
Right place. Wrong time.
What?
Well, you know how dangerous it is bypassing the randomizer.
Well, I can't spend the rest of my life running away from the Black Guardian.
Well, they're actually keeping continuity with that. I'm amazed.
But the survivors build a recreation centre called the Leisure Hive. And there's something called an experiential grid. Cells of different environments designed to produce physical, psychic, and intellectual regeneration.
Guardian, maybe?
That sounds more like it, don't you think, Doctor?
Either that or it's a funky scene transition.
Doctor.
Dangerous, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, that was a scene transition.
Interesting background music.
Yeah.
No one can survive outside it.
They want it all. The whole of our ghosts.
No, it's not for sale.
A dead world in a radioactive atmosphere.
Demonstration of the tachyon recreation generator is about to start.
It seems you are wanted, my son.
As Shakespeare said, first thing we do, let's kill all the lawyers.
What you're seeing is
Better Call Saul would have been a lot shorter if we had.
solid image.
I don't suppose either you or I appear particularly attractive to them.
True. And quite frankly, I can't think what they want with our
Well,
Golis.
that's easily answered. Reptiles are resistant to radioactivity. There's only one life
back to
form in the
Godzilla.
galaxy that could live.
For the next hour and a half, we will examine the wave equations that define the creation of solid tachyonic images.
That's fine, but do you have to look like an idiot when you do it?
I was kind of hoping these reptiles would look a little bit more like the draconians, but apparently not. Is this supposed to be another landing craft?
I think so.
Your son has no great love for this earth scientist, has
He
he?
resents the fact that Hardin has found a better use for tachyonics than these arbling games.
A better use?
Yes, Brock, a better use. Hardin has learned to manipulate time.
You know, I did think about that. I normally hear about tachyons in relation to time.
No need to panic, ladies and gentlemen.
Something's gone wrong.
Who are you?
I'm a doctor.
The scientist. My mother's most anxious to meet this gentleman.
He's terribly hurt. Come on, clear the area. Clear the area.
He's wearing a different scarf.
He's wearing a whole different outfit.
Don't let me interrupt you, gentlemen. Those holograms have been edited together.
Really?
Yes, I noticed vague interference pattern.
And you noticed the necklace, of course.
What?
Well, the clothes were the same, but the necklace was different.
Oh, yes, that's of course.
Of course.
Why are they so competitive?
Fascinating.
Doctor! Doctor! Doctor!
Bowser.
Alrighty. That is part 1.
Seems rather short.
22 minutes. A couple minutes off. You know, I'm pretty sure I was getting some comments that were saying that last season was kind of end of an era. And I think that's definitely shown here. Like, and not just from the intro and the outro, but I don't know, something about this one's odd.
Yeah, it's there's not a huge through line yet. You know, we know obviously something's off with the tachyonic experiment, but why would the doctor leave his scarf around one of the red statues and go into the box that he knows is dangerous? Especially without telling Romana.
I mean, I guess he's curious. He's curious as to what is happening with it. I mean, I was kind of shocked that he said, "Let's get back to the TARDIS." Like, really? Why would you just leave? This is, you know, ripe for adventure and everything. So that was kind of weird. But then, yeah, just sticking around and tricking Romana, I guess, because Romana would probably try to stop him, but I don't know. It's just very odd. But just the whole feel of this episode, like, I don't know, like, some of it, it's like, all right, we're on an alien world, there's these alien people, there's some, you know, crazy stuff going on, and there's a big goofy monster somewhere, and that's fine. We haven't even seen, you know, if it even looks that bad or not. But so that's all very much there. But something about just the way it's shot, the pacing, the music is definitely different.
Yeah.
There definitely seems to be a different, and I mean, this is after Douglas Adams left as script editor, so they must have a new, you know, showrunner. I put that in quotes because every time I say there's a new showrunner, everybody loves to remind me that was not a thing in the 80s. But still, there is a person in charge, script editor, showrunner, whatever you want to call it. But it definitely feels like things have changed at Doctor Who.
Yeah.
So, even just down to the fact of, I guess K9 is dead, or he just hasn't fixed up K9 yet.
Yeah.
Like, there's, I don't know, because we normally have that dynamic of, I mean, K9 always kind of comes later, you know? So, like, they'll go around, and then they'll be like, okay, we need to really figure out what's going on. Now we call K9, but I don't know, it just seems off. And the Doctor's outfit, it's a completely new outfit, a red outfit, even down to a completely different scarf, which is interesting. Which, yeah, I knew there was, I figured there would be another outfit, and it's fine to have another outfit, But the fact that it's a completely different scarf is weird.
Yeah.
Because while he'll have different outfits, the scarf, I mean, I thought that was the iconic thing, but
Yeah.
apparently...
And again, introducing all this stuff with no explanation.
Yeah.
You know, not like saying, well, you know, I decided that while we're here at the beach, I needed something a little heavier or whatever, you know, or the old one was getting worn out. But I will, again, after 17 seasons, I've got to say one of the, and I don't want to call it a mistake, but one of the biggest changes, and I can't say that I care for it, is the new version of the theme song.
Yeah, the more techno version.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the previous intro that we had from the Third Doctor's final season up through season 17, which I find it ironic that came in the Third Doctor's final season, and now this is coming in at the Fourth Doctor's final season before we move on, and this, you know, kind of becomes the new techno Doctor Who theme going forward. But yeah, it's very strange. I don't know. I mean, I guess it makes sense after 17 years you want to change things up, update things a bit, but I don't know. It just seems odd. So,
It's disco.
Yeah.
I blame disco.
Yeah, which is weird because now it's 1980. Yeah. It's like you think it would have been a little too late to try to do that. So I don't know.
Something wrong?
Yeah, this is not well defined.
Well,
Where do you come from?
Gallifrey?
I've never heard of it.
Well, it's just an obscure little planet in the constellation of Disturbance, and we're overdue. I think we should be on our way.
Wait. Have you ever experimented with time?
you have no idea.
Well, yes. Radon 222 decays rapidly.
But not the heavy metal dust. It won't be habitable for 3 centuries.
Yeah? Why? How long did the war last?
20 minutes.
As long as that.
Now you understand the purpose of the Hive. The few of us who survived the war have our own price to pay. There will be no future generations.
The transmission fault has been identified, Madam Chairman.
Show me.
Does she mean they're sterile?
Yes. This leisure hive is the Argolian farewell gesture.
A slow, steady metabolism for most of our lives, and then... This has come to me sooner than I thought.
Borrowed some costume pieces from an Elizabethan drama, no doubt.
Just with some spray paint.
Don't you see how? We've got to make this work. Can't you see what's happening? Surely that's not the woman we saw on Earth.
When will it be ready, Mr. Hardin?
Soon, Madam Chairman. The adjustments have to be exact.
You'll all get a better view, you know, from up top.
All this modern technology, and there's an hourglass in the background. Had some old aluminum siding laying around. Decided to build a set out of it.
Mr. Brock.
Now, this is the one thing I do like, is the fact that, like we've suggested for 17 seasons now, they're not showing us the entire monster.
Well,
It's not only more suspenseful that way, but it's also actually a little more frightening because you now imagine what you think the reptile looks like.
well. How did that happen?
How do you drop your glasses?
Anyone there?
Nobody here but us monsters.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is your scarf, isn't it, Doctor?
Can you swear your innocence before the helmet of Theron?
Yes.
Let me hear the facts of the case.
You know, I understand the misconception because he was, clearly had the scarf around him, but I don't think the scarf would have given him any, like, claw wounds that a giant reptile easily would have given him.
Stable at 440.
Try 450.
I'm surprised how cooperative Romana is.
You sure about this, Romana?
According to our calculations, the most it'll do is knock off 10 or 12 years.
Right.
It's not like it's going to give you an old body, though that would be hilarious. Oh no. Now he's present day Tom Baker. Oh, that wasn't even 20 minutes long. These are shorter. What's going on here? This is odd.
Well, the biggest change I see from stories from last season, even though last season wasn't all that great. I mean, there's some good stories, but this is very slow.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot of action. We have a obviously scary, what is meant to be villain, who we're only seeing a little bit of shadows of, which is good if you're going to, make them reptilian. But why? There's literally nothing to say why they're doing what they're doing. I mean, we know that they want to take over the planet.
Assuming they are the Formassi that want to buy the planet anyway. Which I guess this could be a thing of, well, they're sneaking in, so things go wrong, and the Argolans, relent, and they were like, fine, we'll sell the planet just to get rid of it. But I kind of expected the Formassi to be more human-like. Like, they seem to be more monster, and if it's the case, I don't know, that just doesn't seem right.
Yeah. And again, we have to keep going back to the Draconians, who were one of the best villains makeups that we've ever seen. And this, I mean, literally it looks like they were knitted. I mean, the bumps around the eyes that we've been seeing, the hands and everything, it looks like somebody knitted a Godzilla costume.
Yeah. They don't look like they can buy a planet.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's also just a weird thing of, for a bit, it's like, okay, the leisure hive and this whole thing of it's a leisure planet, it's a nice vacation spot. It takes a little bit before you start to think like, okay, why are they messing with tachyons? Is it just for this goofy little demonstration, like, oh, haha, this is fun, you can bisect your own body or something. But then it's like, oh, it's to help the Argolan race, and it's like, okay, why is that being developed at some vacation spot?
Yeah, at an amusement park.
Yeah.
It's like, Disneyland getting into thermonuclear weapons.
Yeah, so it's not like you can't have either of those things. They just seem kind of weird. It's like, yes, after the Great War, which they have, the helmet there of their, hero.
Which, by the way, looks like ancient Greece.
Yeah. It couldn't have been too long ago, though, because they all lived through the war, including the son there. He's of the youngest generation who still lived through the war, so it couldn't have been too long ago. But when they're saying, like, oh, yes, he would cast people into the fire when he was stumped, and it's like, what was that, like 30 years ago? What was with that guy? Did it work? I don't even know if it did work. So, well, he cast people into the fire when he was stumped during, this great war. They said the war lasted 20 minutes, which you understand what that war was and why the world is so bad off and they want to rejuvenate it. But it's like they just keep trying to put a couple things together. They just don't fully go together. They can work in separate things, or they can work if the other thing didn't exist. So yeah, I'm not sure. And why did that guy say that he can reverse time when he can't? Like, why did he fake this anyway?
The billionaire who was funding him, I guess, was assuming he was going to make money, but now that guy is dead. So yeah, it's confusing, to say the least.
Yeah, so it's also kind of funny that we're going through this whole thing, this Earth scientist who's struggling to, reverse time. Meanwhile, not only have we had that with multiple stories, with the fourth Doctor even, because we had the one with whatever the guy from Indiana Jones that was in City of Death.
Yeah.
I can't remember what his character was called, because now I'm just thinking of Skagra, and that's a different character in this show. But there was also with Invasion of Dinosaurs, with the third Doctor. Wasn't that just humans that figured out, we figured out how to reverse all of time except for this one little spot? Their plan didn't work, but to their credit, they could reverse time.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny that now, in the future, this Earth scientist is struggling. He can't figure out how to reverse time. And even Romana is having a little bit of trouble. So I don't know. And now the Doctor's old. Now he looks his age.
What happened?
I don't know. Hardware malfunction. I don't
was trying to check
understand.
something in there. I can't remember.
The Doctor is unwell. See that he is given a cabin.
And confine him there. He's still on trial for murder. Confine them both.
You're not
Very
in
well.
charge yet, Simba.
I declare a limitation on them both. Hardin, you will come with me.
I mean, I don't think he's going to do much now.
See, again, that just 10, 15 seconds that doesn't show us anything, give us no reveal of anything. It's just padding.
Am I leaning too heavily on you?
No, Mina.
The distance between us seems to have lessened again. What went wrong with the experiment? I felt so sorry for you.
For me?
And for the Argolin, of course.
For the Doctor.
A last chance for us. When the chairmanship passes to you, Pangol, you'll moderate your views.
The ancient Greeks of Earth believed in moderation.
Athens was the seat of wisdom.
And it fell to the might of Rome.
What do you want, Earthling?
And then the Greek civilization overwhelmed the Roman civilization.
Don't be alarmed, Mr. Brock.
You mean the Argolins donated cells from their bodies to this recreation generator and cloned themselves? There's a flaw in your story. Where are all the others?
The theory was still primitive. There were many failures.
And yet he survived.
For 20 years, a moratorium was declared on the technique. Until I came of age. A thoroughly proficient tachyon engineer. There will be no more disfigured mutants in our next reduplication program.
What? Doesn't make any sense to me.
It's a giant cricket.
Doctor! Romana, make heaven just say.
Don't interrupt. He's a Formasi.
Okay, I guess he is.
Doctor? What do you make of this?
Well, you make a hat with a bow tie.
Don't you touch me! No! No, don't you touch me! Get away from me! Don't you touch me!
Okay. Did not see that coming.
So do you get what's happening?
All right. So the box that they found apparently is interfering with the experiment, which obviously, to me, has been set there by Pangol to prevent that from working because he has the generator working on his cloning technique. And it turns out the guy with the mustache and the, Count of Monte Cristo suit appears to have been a Formasi, probably from the West Lodge, who has been trying to disrupt all of this from the beginning. That's what I'm seeing so far. Let's see if episode 4 tells me I'm correct or not, but that's the way I saw it.
Okay.
And the cricket guy who was helping the doctor is apparently from the Famasi government, who finally has exposed the double agent Famasi capitalist.
And I guess he's just in disguise as a human?
Yes.
Because he did... Okay, because he had that, like, skin in his closet, basically. So I guess that was the skin of Brock, basically. And the one guy who dropped his glasses somehow, Stinson, he found it. Thus, Brock, in his actual Formasi form, killed him, then put his skin suit back on, I guess. Can we also just say, and I know this was in the last episode and not in this third episode here, it's not possible to drop your glasses that easily. We can say this. So clearly, the writer does not wear glasses, and that guy does not wear glasses, because these things don't just like fall off at random points during the day.
And if they do, you certainly notice it.
Yeah. So unless he took his glasses off for whatever reason, but that's the next problem: is if you wear glasses, you don't take them off. So I don't know. And that's a minor point. It doesn't matter in the slightest. It's just a thing we notice. So.
Is it something to do with the random field frame?
I wish I knew what you wanted, friend.
I thought the TARDIS translated everybody's language. Except when it's not convenient.
Yeah, depends on what mood it's in.
Yeah.
How do they fit into those human suits, though?
Bigger on the inside,
I guess.
Now that I have your attention and this traitor's voice synthesizer, I must explain. I'm the Famasi government.
The whole government.
You're going back to face trial. The filaments will hold him until we board our shuttle.
Alright then. Well, bye.
Citizens of the old Argolis, today your lives will be irrevocably changed. And the Hive itself transformed as we equip ourselves for the rebirth of this great planet.
he went in the left door. No, you can't get away.
He's not dead yet.
You've got to stop him! He's mad! Stop him! Stop him!
It's the Clone Wars. Look.
An army of Pangols.
So who's in charge? You know, with that close-up, do you think they just had one guy circling around?
No, apparently not.
Oh, yeah.
Notice there are different heights.
Yeah.
Let me go! What are you doing? Doctor.
They're all him, aren't they? Yeah, that was quite the hold on him.
That is not an easy task. Kneeling and picking somebody up. Oh, look, she moved her arm
Where's the doctor?
around his shoulders.
meantime, I must try to bring him up properly. But there's work to do first. We must contact the Formasi and avert this war. Well, let's continue this discussion in the boardroom.
Harding.
Doctor.
Hello, baby.
Mazel tov.
And I'm missing K9.
All right, then.
So, 2 hours worth of action, which should have been spread over 4 episodes, all took place in the last 10 minutes of the 4th episode.
Mm-hmm. You know, I really didn't think they were going to keep up the continuity with the Black Guardian. I don't know if that ever actually comes back. Is that going to be in this season? We pretty much ignored it all of last season. Yeah. So, I didn't even think he was still using the randomizer. So,
well, the fact that they showed up on Earth at the Brighton Beach seems to me that, well, of course, didn't they have a discussion about they didn't use the randomizer to get there?
Yeah.
Even though that meant that the Guardian could track them?
I think it was something like they've kind of been bypassing the randomizer. Yeah. I think they did that a bit last season, too, so...
Perhaps, and again, this would be way in advance, but perhaps they're setting up the end of the season. You know, maybe Tom Baker has announced this will be his last season, and they're setting up a way for him to be regenerated.
It's possible. Which, if that is the case, it'll be interesting having that and also having several companion swap outs. I mean, because we're going to have to lose Romana, and then we'll have to get Adric, Nyssa, and Tegan, I'm pretty sure, before the 5th Doctor takes over. So, I don't know. That would be... It's basically... It sounds kind of odd that if Tom Baker knew this was going to be his last season, that Lalla Ward would have left earlier, would not have just left when he left. Yeah. So, I don't know. And, you know, we do sometimes kind of tally up all the abuse the Doctor takes before his regeneration. And I think aging about 500 years, even though he was de-aged, I think that we can stack that in.
Yeah. Which is odd because he was an old man, and then a younger man, and then a kind of the same age man, and then a much younger man, and he's going to go even younger here. But there, you know, he's suddenly older than anything that Hartnell ever looked like.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things. They did something similar with the 10th Doctor, where there was a point where, like, the Master aged him by, like, 900 years. But it was a very strange thing, because at first you had a similar thing here, where David Tennant was in sort of old man makeup, and then he aged him even further than that. But it's basically the idea of each body technically has its own separate, you know, line, basically. Its own separate timeline. So, even just aging 500 years, it's only 500 years for that body. So, in theory, if this body lasted 100 more years, you know, at the most, then he would look older than Hartnell. It's just that the 1st Doctor lasted that long. So yeah, it's basically a whole thing of, like, because there's also people, and I don't know how they do this, but there are people that try to figure out how long the Doctor had each of his bodies, and I feel like that's a fool's errand, because, you know, you can try to do that with, just going off of, you know, he had companions at which time and stuff like that, but there's always, like, pretty much every episode of Doctor Who has some sort of story between it and the next episode. Unless they're, you know, a back-to-back, you know, 2-parter in modern Doctor Who or something. There's always something, because it's the only place they can fit in more stories. And I feel like it would also be trouble here, because you do have to kind of wonder, how long has he been with Romana? Because Romana doesn't age like most of his other companions. So they at this point, they could have been traveling around for 100 years.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's a whole thing, and it just doesn't work anyway. So, it's a fool's errand. Because I know some people have said, like, if you try and calculate the 10th Doctor and how long he went, if you kind of just go by what's shown, he technically only lasted, like, 3 years. But that doesn't make any sense. And because there are so many different stories, and I think at one point, there's one thing people forget is that there's a point where he's like in the middle of an episode, he's like, yeah, sorry I was late. I was gone for 100 years, but I'm back now. So, and could he be lying? All that stuff doesn't matter. The point is, he's young again now.
Well, was it The Man in the Fireplace where he was gone for just a minute or two and when he came back, years had passed?
Yeah, there was sort of the reverse of that situation where it's he was on the ship and every time he went back, she was older and older until eventually she was just dead and he had spent too long there. So yeah, it's basically it's trying to find continuity in Doctor Who, which is a fool's errand. So, which is why again I'm surprised that they even brought up the Black Guardian. Like I thought everybody would have forgotten about that by now, you know? I forgot about it already. So, let's see. But yeah, okay. You know, I had an idea for a sci-fi story, like, a long time ago that was some sort of, like, instead of an escape room, it'd be like an escape planet, basically. And it's like, oh, what if you found, like, these, you know, weird things in space, or just like, what's an amusement park in space? So having that as the premise of this episode is really interesting. And then they didn't do a thing with it.
Didn't do a thing with it, except in that first episode.
Yeah.
Where they, you know, discombobulated a guy, but then he actually died.
You could have even just had, like, instead of being like, oh, well, this is a fun thing we do with tachyons here at the Leisure Hive, you could have just had it be like, well, you know, hey, here are some scientific experiments that we're working on. We're trying to show investors, other scientists, you know, yada, yada. You don't have to introduce that aspect in order to just not use it. Like, oh, well, we had an experiment. The experiment seemed to be going well, but, oh, no, some guy got bisected. So now we have to, you know, figure things out. And I just feel like one thing doesn't flow into another in this story. It's like we have this whole, you know, Leisure Hive, but it's really supposed to be about tachyon rejuvenation for the Argolan people who, you know, have become sterile after this war. But it's actually to feed this generator, which cloned a new, healthy, I guess, non-sterile living Argolan, who's then going to clone himself into a sort of legion, but also he's crazy and he wants to continue the war, I guess because he wasn't there. I guess, yeah, he wasn't there. Yeah. He was created like 20 years after. So now he has come of age, he has perfected the technology, and he's going to clone himself into this legion to take out the Fomasi people, who aren't really that bad. It's just, you know, it's basically a couple bad actors, you know? I mean, I guess you could see it as, you know, because we always go back to World War II, because it's fun, honestly. I guess it would be like if people went against Germany here in the 80s, because, well, you know, they started World War II, and it's like, well, that was a long time ago. That was 40 years ago. And it's like, yes, I'm sure not everyone who participated in that is gone, but it's just like the times have changed, and the times have changed here, too.
And one thing that we don't quite understand from an American perspective, because other than Pearl Harbor, there were very few instances of any destruction on the North American continent. But the British, you know, suffered the Blitz. They were in the middle of it. The French were. And so in 1963, when all this Doctor Who started, that's only, 15 years after the end of the war. So it's still fresh on the minds, especially of the writers who had come of age during the war and were saying, hey, this is the experience I had and I want to talk about solutions in the science fiction format. But even as we now get up into the 80s, when you think the war ended in 1945, it's still only 35 years. Yeah. So, and I understand that British science fiction would tend to lean into that because that is literally a shared history for the entire group of islands. They had it so much worse than the Americans did. So I understand why they're doing that and why somebody would say, we need to prevent this megalomaniac from doing something like that again, even though, the crickets the Fomassi were their, sworn enemy. By the 1980s, the Germans were, really good friends with the rest of Europe, especially the West Germans. And of course, we're getting up to the point where in 1989, of course, when East Germany ceases to exist and becomes part of regular Germany again. So, I mean, it all makes perfect sense. Although to Americans, we're sitting here going, why do they keep harping on this? It's because it's literally in their DNA.
Yeah. And I get that. And it's an interesting concept, having this person, he's rising up to get the revenge that he probably doesn't need, and the Fomassi just aren't that people anymore. This war doesn't need to happen again. That's very interesting. By part 4 of the story, when this was all based on a vacation spot, you kind of lost it a bit. Like, you've kind of run out of time to do this whole plot line. Because, the entire point, and honestly, why do you need tachyons to clone yourself? Because I understand at least the tachyons to reverse time and rejuvenate the Argolan people. That works. And even if then he was like, yes, we are rejuvenated, now we can go finish the job, and if something goes wrong, well, we can rejuvenate ourselves again. That's all fine. But the cloning, I guess just because it's a temporal copy, basically. It's an identical temporal copy. No, they were all different sizes, but that's beside the point. That's just the minor thing. It's whoever was available on the crew to wear those costumes. But yeah, it's like I feel like cloning is much easier than turning back time. And I know, it's all sci-fi nonsense, but I don't know. There's something about the conclusion of, yes, we Pangol will be the army who will go after the Fomassi who haven't really been doing anything. Like, okay, I understand going after the West Lodge because they're a bunch of, greedy businessmen who just wanted to try to buy this planet for cheap. But the rest of the Fomassi, they haven't done anything. So,
yeah. Now, two very weird echoes in the undertones here. One, the thing about the mass suicide, this is within a year after the Jonestown massacre, where the people who were religious fanatics killed themselves because they had been told that the outside world was coming in to kill them, so they took the advantage of the Kool-Aid, the poison Kool-Aid, it actually wasn't Kool-Aid, but the poison drink, and they killed themselves. But I also got an undertone of the neo-Nazi movement, of the young people around the world, and it continues to this day, who said, the Germans have now rehabilitated themselves, but the Nazis, who just happened to start literally in Germany, the Nazis and the Germans are different. And so I got this idea that, maybe Pangol there was this idea of the Germans were right, we need to get rid of all of the, non-superhuman race that they thought they were. So again, that's just some very faint echoes underneath all of that. And I don't know if that's what David Fisher was going for, but it's a thought.
Yeah, and
sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Yes,
yes. I did see there was a comment just within the past day on the Horns of Nyman where someone was saying, Dad really he gets the weirdest theories about some of these. It's just the Minotaur. I don't know where you got some of this weird alien foreigner xenophobia things from, and it's here it's more blatantly obvious. Yeah. But again, I guess it's one of those things of yes, that's interesting. You could do that sort of stuff. you could do a whole episode about that and not just part 4 of this story, which otherwise is really confusing.
Yeah.
So,
well, having read science fiction literally since the 1960s myself, I'm a great fan of science fiction. Writers of science fiction usually are writing it in order to address problems that society has had in the past, and say, here in an ideal society is how we might fix that, how we might prevent it from happening again. So that's why I tend to do that.
Yeah.
Sorry, yes, it's a fault.
And I mean,
I accept the blame for that.
But I feel like watching like 3 episodes of Star Trek, your mind would start to be hardwired for that, because Star Trek did that all the time, where it's like, which is an interesting thing, because I was watching a review of the 2nd season of Star Trek Picard, which we didn't react to. We only reacted to the 1st season. We didn't have any interest in going on, but basically, slight spoilers, I guess, for the 2nd season of Picard, but they basically go back in time. But they go back in time to the present day, like 2022, basically. And that's fine. You can do that, and Star Trek has definitely done that. But it was more of, like, there were, like, clips of the showrunner who was like, well, it's really hard to tell, some of these sci-fi stories and these commentaries on things that are happening today. So we took them back in time to literally comment on what's happening now. And you can do that if you're a good enough writer. And I mean, there's a whole Star Trek movie about saving the whales, and that's fine. But the point with sci-fi is, yes, to comment on stuff about today, but to also do it in the future, And Star Trek has done that, where they'll go to a planet and something weird is happening, and it's like, oh, wait a minute, we had this 400 years ago on Earth. Or even the Orville does that. Well, the easiest one they'll go to is Moklis, and there's something bizarre happening on Moklis today. Or they'll go to Kalon or to the Krill, but they'll have something outside in the future, while yes, it's also centered around a bunch of people in this kind of goofy looking makeup. So you can do that. Again, though, take your time on that. What was the point of the Leisure Hive? Yeah, I just don't... And the whole episode is named after that, too. And it's like, this is a weird... Like, I have to figure out, like, what is the... From a business standpoint, it's like, okay, they were a race who lost their planet. They're sterile. They're going to die. So they made a vacation spot, of which the only thing you apparently can do at this vacation spot is watch a guy get bisected and hope he doesn't die.
Well, you can play anti-gravity squash, racquetball.
Yes.
That's the only 2 things we saw.
Yeah. You know what? Romana, I think Brighton Beach was better. So long as K9 doesn't go into the ocean, which, okay, that's a way of getting rid of K9 for the episode. It's also the dumbest thing I've ever seen, of like, K9 would know to stop.
Yes, K9 would know not to go into the water.
Yeah, like that. Also, I just figured K9 was waterproof anyway, and so K9 would stop. Or I was almost waiting for, the ball's getting away in the ocean, and he has like a tractor beam or something to retrieve the ball, because that would be clever. Because otherwise, how's he going to pick it up? Yeah. So yeah, honestly, like I'm looking at all of this, and it's like, okay, Romana, you brought us here because this is your idea of a better, downtime vacation spot. And I just don't see where we're going here, Romana. But, of course, in Romana's head, nothing would have gone wrong. That guy wouldn't have died because he was bisected. Everything would have been fine. They would have done this and they would have left. Obviously, yes, you need conflict for the plot. But I'm just sitting here, it's like, this is so convoluted. And to go from Romana wants a better vacation spot to this guy is going to lead an army to genocide all of his enemies, I question how we get there. And some of that is the fun of Doctor Who, of how do we get from goofy to really serious. But you have to make that work, and I don't think this did. So
I think we've covered that pretty extensively.
Yeah. And this is on top of the fact that the whole show just seems different now. It's just so much more techno.
And oddly enough, we were talking about how that seemed shorter, and yet there was quite a bit of padding.
Yeah, there was a lot of... The transitions were really
walking
weird.
Down the corridors.
There was walking down the corridors. There was cutting outside to the complex. There were these strange, like, light explosion transitions that didn't do anything.
Now, I thought that was maybe the sun coming up, because he said when it's dawn we'll start the revolution, sort of. But yeah, it's like the sun's already up. We already saw the sun over the horizon. Why do we need to keep seeing the sun getting brighter and brighter?
Yeah, was this nighttime? I couldn't tell. So, I don't know. And then the conclusion of, well, what was her name? Mina. She's been rejuvenated and Pangol's been turned back into a baby. Okay? Which, if the cloning, presumably because they said they had to wait till he came of age to continue any cloning stuff. So he was cloned as a baby. You know, I guess it's kind of like Krypton, where, you know, Superman is like a natural birth, but they're mostly just cloned, created as babies. So then why is it when he cloned himself, they were identical copies? Well, I guess the Doctor messed with it too. I guess he was expecting to just have his army of egomaniacs, but I don't know. I guess that would have been a funnier twist if he just made like 10,000 babies, and then he's like, "Well, I guess I have to wait 20 more years before I can actually attack the Fomasi." But I don't know. And it was also funny just seeing that baby with the wig on him. I thought that was kind of funny. They did nothing, like they didn't put any makeup on him at all. He was a very pale baby, but they stuck that on. That's probably why he was crying.
I'm sure this is, you know, to me it was pretty obvious, and yet it never went anywhere at the end. But it seemed to me that the scientist and Mina had a relationship beyond the Queen and the scientist.
Yeah.
And they hinted at that overtly several times, but never saw anything come of it at the end. So it's like, why? Why did you make us think that?
Yeah. Yeah, that is a strange thing.
But again, at the end, it could be when she says, got the baby, says, I'll have to rear him better this time with you by my side, sort of thing. Yeah, just something to explain it.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's it's just, I don't know how much more we can say about the episode. Overall, it's okay. It's not the worst thing we've ever seen. There were one or two episodes last season that were a bit worse than this. It's just strange. Also, I don't like the Doctor's new outfit. Like, it's a little too red. So I was fine. I understand changing things up. They do that sometimes with, you know, the 10th Doctor, you know, he'll have his blue suit or his pinstripe suit. The 11th Doctor, he had like a tweed jacket originally, and then he had a darker purple jacket later. So you can do that. You can have a new outfit, but this one seemed... It was too red, but also just the fact that it's still pretty much identical to the original outfit. It's just red now. Yeah. I think what would actually help, weirdly enough, is if he still had the old scarf, because that would at least break up some of the color a bit. So, what we got next? Meglos. Alright then. Alright then. Yeah, Meglos. And we are well into 1980, by the way. We're into September of 1980 now. So let's see. We started the 70s with at the beginning of the Third Doctor. So now we're finally going into, which people were also quick to correct me, because on top of not knowing if it was a writer's strike or not with Shada, people did correct me that classic Doctor Who ends in 1989, not in 1986. So we still have 10 full years of classic Doctor Who and a lot of Doctors to run through in the meantime. So I assume you have nothing else.
I got nothing.
All right, then. Then with all that being said, we're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen if you want to go click around any of those. There's a playlist for all of our Doctor Who classic reactions, as well as another playlist for all of my modern Doctor Who reactions if you want to go check that out. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.